Commissioner Tonelli is excused. Commissioner Sokolow?
Here.
Commissioner Lamb?
Here.
Commissioner Lerner?
Here.
Thank you.
All right, good. And the next item on the agenda is the opening for public comments for items that are not on the agenda. We have this set up so that if somebody has something that's not on the agenda, they get an opportunity to talk about it today. And sometimes that turns into an agenda item in the future because they bring up something that we should address. So I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing for anything that's not on the agenda. Is anyone here to talk about something other than what's on the agenda? Okay, then I'll close the public hearing and bring it back. And let's go ahead and with the approval of the minutes.
I didn't have a change. I was not.
You have one?
I noticed a discrepancy. It may just be a typo.
Okay.
But in the motion regarding the height of the sidewalls in homes, I see it has 5 ayes and
That's for the
the
minutes.
wrong one.
Yes.
Well, anyway, it had 5 ayes and 1 abstain. Where am I?
It's four and one. The next last page. So it should be
Four.
4 and 1.
7?
Yeah, it should be 1 no. Right?
Yeah, and I think it was
Right.
4 to 1
No.
no rather than 4 to 1
Yeah.
abstain. It's a minor point, doesn't change the outcome, but
Right.
it's just something I noticed.
Right.
Change, I moved.
All right, moved and
Seconded.
seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed? None. And that passes 4-0 with 1 pending. All right, and now we'll go ahead and open the public hearing segment. And just an overview for those of you who haven't been here before, what we do is we open it up with a staff report that gives us an overview of the item. Then and there's potential for questions from the commission to the staff, and then we open up for public comment, and we start with the applicant, and then anyone else who would want to talk on the item would talk then. We close the public hearing, and we bring it back to the commission for discussion and action as appropriate. So that's the process we'll use on all the items. So I'll go ahead and then we'll go for the continued item from March 22nd, the heritage tree removal at how do you say it? Toyon
Toyon.
Road, 12 Toyon Road. I've been there a couple of different times, and I just know how to say it. All right, let's go ahead and staff report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Bit of background. So this item was continued from your March hearing. At that meeting, the request before you was also for the removal of 2 heritage trees, 2 different trees, however. At the March meeting, the proposed set of development plans for a single-family home and some accessory buildings triggered the applicant's request to remove 2 quite large oak trees on the, if you're standing on Toyon Road, facing in the left-hand side of the property. The staff recommendation upon review of those trees and the submitted arborist report and the proposed home layout was to support the removal of one of those oak trees that was in the footprint, so to speak, of the proposed new home, and to recommend denial of the second oak tree, which was in very close proximity to what was proposed as a detached 3-car garage. Staff had worked with the applicant knowing that the staff recommendation was going to be denial of the 1 tree. They did request a continuance until tonight's meeting to allow time for them to work on potential revisions to the home, for their arborists and their development team to work with both planning and the town arborist to try to come up with a more amenable solution. And that is a solution that is being presented to you tonight. So in terms of the request before you tonight, again, still the removal of 2 trees, but now it's the removal of 2 cedar trees. They're both 65 feet tall, pretty tall trees. One is 20 inches, one is 24 inches in diameter. These 2 trees are located on the opposite side of the property. So if you're standing on Toyon, right-hand side of the property, towards the center rear. And the nature of that request is due to the fact that the applicants have effectively flipped the layout of their both main residence and all of their ancillary accessory buildings. So everything kind of shifted over to the right-hand side. At the March meeting and under the prior proposal, I had spoken directly with 2 of the immediately adjacent neighbors. Both had concerns with the removal of that oak tree. Since they had expressed interest, I went ahead and contacted them when the revised set of plans was submitted. Both of them were pleased to see the change and supported the application as it is proposed to date. So just a little bit of detail on the trees. Again, there are 2 cedar trees located either in the footprint of a structure or in close proximity. They wouldn't survive even if that structure was to be built, given their close proximity. The project arborist has noted both trees to be in fair condition and overall fair health. Our arborist has been out there, our town arborist has been out there numerous times, concurs with the recommendation of the project arborist, coupled with their proposed replanting plan of 3 48-inch size native oak trees to replace those 2 cedar trees. Staff is recommending approval of the application. So I think the whole team is here, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
There was a tree, I was out there again today, just to make sure I got, understood about the tree. There was a tree that was cut down, that was near to, that was just on the
I'm sorry, near tree number 2, so up towards the front of the property.
no, towards the curve of the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a tree that was cut down. Do you know about that one? It was just on the,
I probably would defer to the town
So
arborist
there
if
were
there's some-
2 trees that were approved at staff level for removal.
Okay.
So I haven't been out there recently, but they have picked up the permit, and they would be able to address that
okay.
if it's been cut down.
I saw it cut today, it wasn't cut before, I just want to make sure I was covered by something we approved. All right, good. Anything else?
No.
All right, then I'll go ahead and open the public hearing, and they'll hear the applicant or their representative. You rates this one out, I think.
In Menlo Park, I just had to sit out the whole meeting, so that was nice. I am Kevin Kilty Arbor Services, San Mateo, California. We are the site arborists on this project, and I agree with staff that the original plan and the removal of that one very nice oak tree was probably a stretch at best. So anyway, the new plan, the flipping of the house gets us away from the very large redwood tree that's on that left side. It keeps us from removing the oak tree on the left side, and there's 3 cedar trees. We're applying to remove 2 of them. We're going to build around the 1. The 3 of them have grown in kind of a group. They're one-sided. They have long lateral limbs, a tendency to break. Cedars are a real brittle wood that snaps quite easily, especially if they've been topped or had some kind of a storm event that has caused a radical type limb growth more than a upright growth. Their vigor is, we have them rated as fair, but they're on the poor side of fair. Vigor-wise, they look like they've suffered through the drought quite a bit. The property lately has been a rental, so it hasn't gotten quite the maintenance and especially with irrigation that it would have gotten. So trees aren't, the cedars aren't great. They're if they were to be retained, they would definitely require some maintenance to make them a little bit safer, a lot safer actually. So I thought it was a great plan to flip the house, and I'm glad we've met quite a few times in town and hashed this out a few times. And I think we have a great plan right now with what's going on, with a much less impact to the trees on site. So.
And you know which trees were cut down already?
I do not know what was cut down. I know tree 10A and 10.
It's 8A. It should be 8A and 8.
8A and 8 are to be removed. I believe they're still in place. I do know they were going to do some brush clearing. There may have been trees that weren't of protected size yet. That, they're starting to make the access to the property more available. So.
That must have been the case, because it's not on these numbered maps, but it was close to this size, but not. I question whether it was that these area sizes or not when I looked at it, but it was.
Where was it located?
Right on the curb of the driveway, on the coming on the left side, it was right on the inside of the driveway.
Okay, yeah.
It was knocked over, and then there was another one inside in that area there that was pretty big, and it was, I don't know what tree it was off, but it was in
Right.
that area. It was close. They were all clustered between 2 and 3. there was one behind two over here by the front, and then there was one over here on the side. of the
Right.
driveway.
Yeah, those might have been trees that were under the threshold for protected size. Because I met with the tree care provider yesterday on site. We walked the site. They wanted to know, they wanted to make sure they weren't making any mistakes by cutting any trees down that were somehow weren't on the report or weren't tagged. So they,
All right, great.
so I think we're okay. But I know Sally's going to check, and
I'll
I'm
drive
sure
by
I'll.
tomorrow.
She'll be out there with that flashlight at night, you know it. So, yeah, and if anything was cut down that shouldn't, it would have been a pure miscommunication, because at this point of the project, you would never go that way,
Yeah.
you know, so.
All right, that's all I had. Anything else? All right.
And as far as the actual building details, I don't know much about it. All I care about is that footprint and what effects it's gonna have on the trees, so.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? So you're gonna speak to the item?
You want to speak? Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
My name's Chris. I'm with Stewart Associates, and originally we had the concept of the garage on the left, and then we discovered about that oak and the proximity to redwood. We knew it was going to be a problem, so we just wanted to see what an alternate plan would look like, and we decided to flip it, and that seemed to work out in everybody's favor. So that's where we're at, and I think it's a good plan, and hopefully you agree.
What about the garage?
In terms
Back
of,
as far as you can.
right, I mean, we do have the 30-foot max from the front of the building to contend with. So that pretty much, that's where we're at. We thought about moving it forward. There was some talk about potentially having to get an allowance for that, but we kind of didn't want to go that route, so that's what's dictating the location of the current garage.
The second unit is a complete home, or is it a full house?
It's a self-contained unit, basically, with a barbecue unit.
Okay. All right, great, thank you.
Any other questions? That's it? Okay.
All right, anyone else here to speak on this? Okay, now go ahead and close, use my readings with gavel. I have to close the public hearing and bring it back for discussion and action as appropriate. I just want to check on the second unit real quick. This is the first time I remember since we've done the revision to our plan that this one had a second unit, so it applied to all our new ordinance and everything.
So our second unit ordinance is not yet effective.
Okay.
So the set of plans before you that you would be considering tonight would not be giving any approval on
Right.
any of the structure.
Right.
I'd have to check the permit log and see if they've yet actually formally submitted plans
Okay.
for the development of the property or not. But to answer your question, the new unit, for new second dwelling units, we didn't change
Right.
anything.
Right.
It all has to do with the conversion in
Right.
terms of the standards, so
All right.
it
Good.
would need to comply.
All right, good. I know it wasn't on the topic here, but
Right.
it changed the location of trees and things
Mhm.
like that, so that's why I tried
Yep.
to tie it. All right, anything else? All right, all right, well, for a motion?
I'll move. Planning Commission find that the proposed removal of 2 heritage cedar trees, number 9 and 10 at 1 Triangle Road, Atherton, not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the general plan for the reasons outlined in the staff report, that the commission approve the tree removal conditions stated in the draft tree removal certificate.
All those, there's a second over here, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, and one not here today. All right, thank you very much. All right, good luck on the construction. Nice street.
The site at 1 Triangle Road is a lot, flat lot, and lots of 10,000, 6
slide deck, I understand, is 65 slides, is that correct?
73.
All right, good. All right,
Let's
good.
see the first three.
All right, so let's go ahead with the staff report.
Thank you. So I will give a brief presentation on why we're here and what we are asking the commission to discuss tonight in a study session format. So no action is requested to be taken, just direction to staff if you could following your discussion. So why we're here. Over a year ago, staff, town arborists, discovered a regulatory document entitled our Tree Preservation Guidelines, Standards, and Specifications. She discussed this document with the town's tree committee, and it was discovered that some of those provisions may either have been in conflict with the adopted heritage tree ordinance and or contain additional regulations that weren't being implemented because they were not codified within the town's municipal code. So with that, there was discussion by the town's tree committee, hey, we need to talk about this more, let's form an ad hoc subcommittee, which is what happened. 2 members of the tree committee were appointed, as well as 2 members of the planning commission, Commissioner Sokolow, Commissioner Tonelli, met over a series of 6 months to evaluate that guideline document that I had mentioned previously, as well as the town's municipal code ordinances, to see where any conflicts arose, and really to get into the regulations to see if there was opportunity to enhance them, to change them, if things made sense to do so. So that's why we're here. Now we'll get into what occurred over the course of those ad hoc subcommittees. I think, gosh, when did we start that? In September of last year, ending in February of this year, and we met monthly. So these slides are going to give, or attempting to give, a comparative look at what the existing regulation calls for and what the proposed revisions. Yeah.
Can you put that in presentation mode so it pops up? You know, so it goes big.
It's a PDF, so I can make
Oh,
it
it's a
larger.
PDF.
Yeah, but I can make it
Yeah.
larger on the screen.
Yeah. There you go.
Is that a little better?
That's better.
Okay. So the ad hoc subcommittee, again, wanted to evaluate all of the existing regulations and took a step back in the bigger picture. So these regulations, are we finding these to comply with our applicable general plan policies, land use goals specifically that the town has identified as important, such as preserving the town's character, the scenic, rural, quote, thickly wooded residential area, and what that meant for the trees. So I'm going to get into the slides and then open it up for conversation and discussion, and Sally can provide more of the specificity as it relates to the whys of why the regulation is where it is from the industry standard standpoint. So with that, I'll jump right into it. So the current regulations define a heritage tree within the town as any tree that's 48 inches in circumference or greater in the tree protection area. The tree protection area is anything outside that buildable area for the main residence. It also includes native oak trees, so any kind of native oak, whatever the species is, 48 inches or greater in that buildable area, so where that main house can be. The measurement to define these heritage trees is taken 4 feet above grade. So the committee evaluated those standards, and again, in context of the town's existing adopted policies as it relates to tree preservation, are recommending that within the tree protection area, so outside where that main house can be built, to also include any native oak tree that's 6 inches or greater in size. So that would add a whole new element to what trees are protected.
6 inches, you mean diameter?
Circumference.
6 inches?
So 6 inches diameter.
So
Right.
yeah, 6 inches. We're going back and forth with
Yeah.
so the 48 inches is circumference, but when we're talking about over here, we're talking about 6 inches in diameter.
Diameter.
I thought so.
Half, yeah, 12 inch,
So
right?
we probably want to get those lined
We'll
up.
get those lined up so that it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's close to 18, whatever, right?
Yeah, call it either circumference or diameter, make that consistent throughout. So the additional enhancement that the committee also is recommending, beyond just native oak trees 48 inches in circumference or greater within the buildable area, is to also add redwood trees 15 inches in diameter or more. It
15
was
inches in diameter is gonna be like,
like
like 40,
It's 48 inches
48,
circumference, yeah.
40 inches in diameter.
Point something.
Yeah, 3.14, right?
and
I remember that.
with that particular edition, there was a lot of discussion that went over the course of several months about redwood trees specifically. And at the end of the process, there was consensus with the committee that redwood trees were found to be also a highly valued, coveted aesthetic asset to the town. They're large, they're tall, and there's a lot of them around, which was kind of the simplistic basis as to why redwoods were recommended to be added in.
And that's about the same size as the oak size.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. A new addition, a whole new provision to be added in, and this is, I think, to help provide clarity not only to our town arborists, but to the folks on the development side, is what do we do with trees that split their trunks? Because there was no language that addressed that. And so the committee recommended to add some language, specifically that when you have these multi-trunk trees that split off, so to speak, at a certain measurement up, to include those that have a 15-inch diameter where that stem split begins, to have those be included as heritage trees, regardless of species.
Regardless of species.
Wow.
Oh, that's interesting. Well,
What's
I was,
eucalyptus?
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Because
Something.
currently it's any species for 15 inches diameter outside the buildable area. And so that would just include, that would just be part of that. So right now, any species besides acacia and tree of heaven are protected that are 15 inches or greater. So we just wanted to keep that in common. If it's multi-trunk, it's also any species. It would stay with our other heritage rule, which is any species in town is protected at over 15 inches.
And that multi-trunk, the measurement starts where?
It starts at the first stem.
Yeah, that's
So-
at the ground level.
In some cases, yeah, but then if it branches that low, in most cases it's not 15 inches down there.
Okay. All right.
And then the last addition proposed to be added into the heritage tree definition is to change where that measurement is taken from to get that circumference and or diameter measurement. And that was actually increased from 4 feet to 4.5 feet. I believe that change, and Sally, correct me if I'm wrong, stemmed, so to speak, from a comparative analysis of what most jurisdictions do, which as well as a lot of evaluation taken into the ANSI standards, which is the tree Bible industry standard document used, and most do use that 4.5 foot as that measurement starting point. Okay, so moving on.
I think if you're gonna play with diameter versus circumference, circumference is much easier to measure than making calculations or sawing or whatever. It might be consistent just to use that and forget diameter.
Yeah, diameter's gonna be just confusing,
Yeah.
because somebody go out and just eyeball the circumference with a tape measure and be close enough to say, okay, I better get this one investigated. They'll do the reverse math and I don't know, 3.1477, whatever.
Like an English major.
Yeah. Right there on Pi Day and do it.
So the other, one of the other key regulations that was evaluated and is proposed to have some revision made to it has to do with the town's tree protection zone. So this is an area that it's a designated area to protect both the tree and its root system from disturbance, any kind of disturbance, whether it's the construction of a 3-car garage or it's hardscape or it's paving, or it's excavation to accommodate something further out. This is this defined protection area. The documents currently provide specification on certain activities that are allowed and are prohibited within what we're calling the TPZ as an acronym. And the TPZ is determined by the size of the tree. So the current ratio requires 1 foot of TPZ, protection area, per 1 inch of tree diameter. So for a 20-inch diameter tree, the tree would need to have a 20-foot TPZ. This particular standard was also one that was discussed over the course of, if not all of the meetings, almost all of the ad hoc meetings that we had. There was a lot of careful evaluation given. We looked at, again, comparative analysis to other jurisdictions. They looked at the ANSI standards. They looked at real world solutions that they felt were appropriate for the town. So that TPZ, in the long and the short of it, is proposed to be revised so that the measurement calculation changes. The proposed revision is that TPZ is now determined by a formula that would be 10 times the diameter of the tree. So you're
Do they take into consideration the drip line on how trees vary? The canopy might be bigger on one variety or species than another, because that could affect where the roots are, especially the water absorbing roots, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, the
Or
drip
others
line-
might wanna mention that.
So the drip line isn't as accurate of a way to do the tree protection zone, because a lot of trees go way beyond, a lot of roots go way beyond the tree protection zone.
So
if you
it's
just
really
drip
more
line.
generous to use these.
It's more
mathematical-
generous to, both of these
Okay.
is more generous.
Okay, that's good. Generous is good.
It's easier for contractors to put fencing at the drip line, but it's just, it's not as accurate, yeah.
Okay, I'm glad to have your input, Sally.
And also, one other point that I recall in the evaluation of the potential revisions to defining that TPZ was consideration as to what that leaves the development area as.
Yeah, right.
Is it feasible? If you have a lot with numerous trees kind of spotted throughout, and you have a very stringent TPZ, are you allowing any kind of development?
Right.
So the proposed revision, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, would be it would give greater area actually than what our current standard allows for. It could, at least, depending on the specificity of the individual tree.
So
Are
in
these
this
rules
case,
open-
yeah, sorry.
Excuse me. Are these rules open for appeal by a homeowner or a builder or someone so that we can sit down and discuss it on an individual case basis?
So currently it is discussed on it's discussed because in a lot of cases the 1 inch by 1 foot we would not have much building in this town if we really followed that,
I would wonder, yeah.
which makes my job hard. So the committee decided they wanted a little more black and white, and then when they show it on plans it showed 10 times. However, nothing is supposed to be built. It's going to be stricter, as in 10 times no building. And right now it's more of a discussion. If you're closer than the formula currently, then we can have a discussion on building, ways to build, different materials that are better for trees. But they just want more of a standard, and ANSI's standard is anywhere between 6 times and 10 times the diameter, depending on the species. But because we want to preserve trees in town, we're taking the strictest of the ANSI standards.
Yeah. So the only thing I would say on this is that if we took like 5 or 6 of the recent plans and retrofit this proposal on those plans to see what that would have done to the footprint, because they're preserving the trees and they're preserving the individual's investment and the right to build on their property. All right.
Right.
And I want to always balance that because it's a valuable thing that we're playing around with here. So I think that it's really important to understand the theory versus the reality on this. Because we take 5 or 6 examples and put it out there and say, well, that would have made it so they could have a 600 square foot home. Everybody goes like, well, what are you doing?
Yeah, and that would be a good exercise that we could bring back if we come back in another study session type format, so we can give you those concepts to help in your evaluation and discussion, see what that would look like.
It'd also be easier to, on this last one, to have that in the circumference as opposed to diameter.
Yeah.
Because, and then that'll require some math to figure out the final number also.
Yeah.
Because it'll no longer be 6 times the diameter, it'll be 5 times the circumference or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think too, based on what we did with the modern homes and the wall heights and all, we should get some architect input. I'm sure PPG would come, I'm sure there are numbers. Steve Simpson, people that are in town would definitely give input, because I admire the work you guys did, looks great.
Right.
Kevin obviously, and Sally, people like that need to weigh in too. But it would be interesting to see, to your point, is, are we creating more work for these guys, for Sally,
Yeah, but I really do feel like that it was your group's job to come up with standards that were protecting the trees. And then it's our role as a organization to balance that with homeowners' rights.
That's really
And also, we want to make sure that if we put something forward, we say, by the way, this would have affected these 3 plots this way, and it would have not affected these 3. And by the way, there's these 3 that would have actually helped. And then doing that, you can see the balance of the trade-offs. And lot size is going to be really important on this. Because there are properties I can drive by over here that wouldn't have a home on them based on this, right? So.
From the land use planner end, one thought that comes to mind is you may create unnecessary or secondary effects of astringency with the increased request for more exceptions via special structures permit or variance in order for tree preservation. So we'll want to evaluate that as well.
So the reason why this is also coming up, because a lot of trees are dying because of construction.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
So it's not just it's not just coming from. I've received a lot of complaints from homeowners, and trees are dying, and they're getting damaged because it's getting more lax, and even though I'm working with them on a one-on-one basis, that doesn't mean what's always happening on site is not always what the conversation has been. So it's coming from that. I think there needs to be more of a black and white.
Well, there's 2 things that we have to look at on that then. One is whether or not compliance was the issue or the impact was the issue, right?
Yeah.
So if we said, do this, and they didn't do that, then it wasn't the regulation that was the problem. It was the fact that they didn't follow through on the regulation. So if the trees are dying because of that, then we just say, what's the penalty for that? And that was the other question I had on this, is I didn't see what the penalty was. This is the regulation, but okay, so what? That $5 gets you coffee at Starbucks, and
Yeah, there is actually codified penalty now in the municipal code. Do you want to touch on that?
I was wondering, I just didn't
Yeah,
see
we
it.
do.
I just didn't see it.
It's kind of worth hearing. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
So
not $5.
Yeah.
So
I know.
currently-
I saw a fine go through that was pretty big.
So currently, what happens if there's seen damage on sites, which happens, we're not finding as much as it's happening. But if it's clearly that it was construction impact, I appraise the tree before it was impacted, and I appraise it after the impact. So sometimes that could be $5,000, and then we double that. So it's the appraised less value doubled, plus any kind of mitigation. If they illegally remove a tree, or it's found, which is really hard sometimes 5 years after to find that the tree is dead because of construction. However, if it looks like a newer home and it's really close, it's pretty clear, then it's the appraised value of the tree when it was healthy. So, there have been cases where that's $60,000. It depends on the species. It depends on a lot of things for the appraisal cost. But yeah, so it's that cost is always doubled. Plus, they have to replant back onto the site so many trees, so much money worth of trees by the end of the project.
So that would be worthwhile to have an update report periodically, because I've never seen a report that says, you know, trees killed per square foot in the town or dying, and then relate that back to projects we approve, so we know the outcome of project we approve, so that what was the, we know the input, but what was the output? And if we had that periodically, then we say, okay, fine, then we could correlate to that to a couple things. We could correlate it to a particular builder group. You know, like every time they touch it, it dies. So they figured out the way to comply but not comply. That would be something we could find out. And also would evaluate whether or not the regulation is the issue or the execution of the issue. And that's why I want to make sure we're not breaking, that we're really doing the cause and effect thing here. Is it what is really causing the issue? And then if it is, we have very good regulations right now, and they're not being complied with. That's a different approach, right? And if we do all this and make it harder for somebody to comply, is that going to kill more trees? Because and then it's like, okay, we'll kind of comply, and then 3 years, 5 years later, everything's dead. So
Okay.
just again, we want to make sure that we this one is going to be a balancing thing, and again, on the smaller lots, it's a really hard project. I mean, you know, we had that home over here that had a tree that was growing out through the foundation. I don't think that complies. So,
Good point.
right. All right, but I like the idea. Did you guys talk about the differences between circumference and diameter, or did you just roll with it?
We went back and forth between the two. It was always kind of now you've done it. So
Right.
it would be good for people like me to have one
Yeah.
measurement scale.
Well, the other thing too is
Where you can.
the tree circumference footprint would be something that could be put on a map. You know, so rather than just a calculation, okay, this tree is 40 inches or 50 inches in circumference, therefore we will comply. Okay, show me the compliance on the map.
However, arborists usually only use diameter, and that's what's required on the plans.
Yeah, I know.
So that's the.
Yeah, I figured there was a reason that I didn't think you woke up and said let's do 2 different variations just because.
And do the surveyors.
And do the surveys use diameter, so
It's
that's
all
going to
diameter
be,
by
and
survey.
a lot of times I have to look at the surveyor's map, which I can always do the conversions, but
Well, I can do the conversions too, but I'll also want to make sure that we all know the conversions, right? So let's put that on your how will we solve this list?
alright, okay.
Right? We can have a little calculator we all used to do. Oh, that means it's 46.
It's a new table.
The table, yeah, there's
Yeah.
a little key.
Okay.
Get on my slide rule.
So, if there's no more questions or comments on this one, I'll move on for now.
We're on slides 3 of the 73.
Close.
4 of 7.
4 of 7.
4 of 7.
On the last slide.
So right now, in terms of process, the town arborist can approve removal of a heritage tree that's determined to be dead or dangerous, whether it's inside or outside that buildable area. A tree that's not dead or dangerous, like what we saw in the prior application, needs to come to the planning commission for request for removal. So neither of those provisions are recommended to be changed, but some added language is recommended to clarify and expand on process. Like to add language that the request to relocate a tree will also require approval by the planning commission. The thought behind that was that the relocation of trees sometimes can have a higher likelihood of the tree just not surviving that move, and so we want to get a good replanting plan in there just in case. We haven't seen a ton of those.
It doesn't come up a lot, but I
we did see
would.
the one on Selby.
It would be helpful to have that language just because I do get requests sometimes, and it just would be helpful to have the replacement because a lot of times it's just not viable.
Yeah.
And so the second provision that's recommended to be added is also along those lines, and that's to be specific that even if it's a dead tree, you still need to get a permit. And the reason being is that we wanna hold
Yeah.
on to that,
Right.
ability to have a replanting
Right.
requirement.
Right. It also takes care of the situation where it says, oh darn, that tree died, how did that happen?
Right.
You know,
So those changes
Right,
are
yeah.
more protection and long-term preservation of trees, should they die or get damaged. Okay.
if we track the death of trees too, we might find there's areas like during the drought, we would find that
Mhm.
because of the side of the hill it's on, 12% of the trees in this area died and only 3% of that area died, and it's related to the location as
Yeah,
much as the
location.
situation.
Yeah.
So the next series of revisions have to do with the requirement for development plans to submit a tree protection and preservation plan for every development permit. Right now, there's a fair amount of specificity on what that tree protection plan needs to show. I included some of that on the slide. Does need to be prepared by a certified arborist. The committee evaluated all of those requirements and wanted to add even more language so that these plans provide even more detail and greater monitoring assurances. So like the instance that Sally was mentioning before, when you get out there and things sometimes aren't always implemented as they are supposed to, this would give a more oversight by the town on a more continual basis. Starting with the first proposed recommendation, which would be to have that tree protection plan include specificity that the project arborist needs to provide monthly reports by a certain date to our town arborist on how the trees are doing and what protection measures are being implemented at that current phase of construction. We'd also want to now have those plans include a tree inventory of all trees, and that inventory is proposed to also include an appraisal of that tree to date, so that you wouldn't run into the instance if there was a case where that tree got damaged or accidentally removed. It's hard to obviously evaluate its value if it's gone or severely damaged.
And why monthly?
That's something that other towns, I think Menlo Park and Palo Alto, do monthly reports, just because there's so much activity on a site at one time. It's also a time that they tell me what kind of trenching is going on, if there's been damage. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be honest, but it's hard for me to be at all the sites, and a lot of things are going on because I can't be at all the sites. So this way, it gives the liability back to the contractor and the certified arborist that's supposed to be the site arborist.
So this month, if that were in place, how many reports would you receive?
Probably we're mostly talking about full site developments because that's the main issue of where trees are dying. So I don't know, we have 20 to 50 maybe full sites right now. The thing is I would put them in. Most likely, I would briefly review them and then put them into a file if there's nothing that seems like it's out of the ordinary. And then if something did happen on site that we found,
Looks easy enough to go out and look at it.
right.
Yeah, I'm just thinking through the process logistics of all that. Okay, so,
Because a lot of times on these sites, if they do have a private arborist on site, the private arborist is not, I don't think, is always there when things are happening.
Right.
This would maybe
they don't
make
want
sure that they are there. Like on this date, this private arborist was here when we were trenching for this.
Yeah, here's where I'm coming from, the line of questioning, is I hate to implement anything that burdens 100% for the fault of 15. And so what I'm trying to figure out is, as we do the statistics on this, is are we talking about 30% of the sites have an issue that we find out later? Or are we talking about 4? Or are we talking about 70? If we're talking about 70, then monthly report seems reasonable. If we're talking about 3 or 5, then monthly report seems like a burden on 95% of the developers. All right. So I'm always balancing process with value, and sometimes process gets in the way of value because everybody goes nuts, and then it ends up slowing everything down, and then we get problems on the other end because they were doing something, they extended their project and they asked for an extension. So I just want to make sure we're, you know, always balancing the reality versus the theory on this.
It's a good point.
You know, and I'm a process nut, so it's not for me to say this. It's I'm not twitching a little bit.
Well, I think the application of a requirement for a report is like a heads up to them that we're paying attention.
Yeah.
So it might enhance compliance in a way that you didn't even realize it had.
You could either that or it just gets them all angry and then they end up, you know, they do a worse job of reporting. If I could get a more accurate report every other month or a cursory report every month, I'd take a more accurate report every other month than I would just, okay, fill out the stupid form. There, we're done. Okay, there, we're done. And then once it got monthly, seems like as minute they're finishing one, they're okay, I gotta do that again. And then they don't really do a good job, and then you're getting bad data, and then we don't, you know, if the report says the tree is healthy and the tree is dead, the tree is dead. All right, so the report is just a facsimile of what's really going on. So all I'm looking for is a way to.
Well, is the report backed up by personal visits every once in a while?
Right, I mean, the site arborist should be visiting when there's any kind of activity around any trees. So I would think if there was no activity that month, it would say there has been no activity in the tree
Yeah.
protection zone of each tree.
70% of the time it's going to be no activity.
Right.
Because once you've done finished your demo, you've already protected the trees, then you start making, you know, there's various spaces in there where there's going to be something happening. Most of the time, nothing.
Oh, so why would we say whenever there is?
Because that's where currently it says within 6 hours you're supposed to contact me if there's any kind of work or damage, and that is not happening. Nobody is contacting me, and I know it's happening.
Yeah.
Okay. All
And
right.
it's hard for me to be at all the sites, so.
I got it. I'm still not feeling that's going to do anything other than add another level of.
Yeah, yeah, this is, I mean, yeah.
Well, make it just more regular. I mean, less regular. Make
Yeah.
it every quarter. Make it every.
I mean, it's a 3-year project, so it wouldn't need to be every month, but it would have to be,
All I'm saying is, how do we lower the thrash
yeah.
and get the compliance and get quality input and make it, you know, anytime you implement a process that is easy to comply with and has a purpose, it's a higher probability of it being used. Anytime that you implement a process that theoretically is easy and theoretically has a purpose and nobody believes it, it doesn't get complied with.
Right.
All right, so.
I mean, it would be good to get input from private tree certified arborists that have to do it currently for Palo Alto, and other contractors who are currently doing it. It would be nice to get feedback from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We've
Well,
got an arborist here.
And I know he does monthly reports
all right.
for other cities, so
Yeah.
Great.
You
we
can
would
vary,
love your feedback.
vary the interval between reports more frequently early on, and then as you say, once things get rolling and everything's in place, it could be less frequent.
Another alternative perhaps is to define the phases, like you were mentioning before, so you require, again, I don't know, not maybe leaving too much room for interpretation, but if you provide specificity on the type of activity that triggers the need for a report to be filed, and you keep that on whatever time frame is determined appropriate during the
Yeah.
activity.
Same idea.
That's kind of containment of the process. I think could be interesting. Of course, then you get a trigger of like, oh, I didn't know that was the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now you got the issues, so now
Okay.
crash through that. Yeah. So we've done a good job on slide 4.
So that sounds like a cue to move on to slide 6.
Perfect.
Okay. Oops. Excuse me. Here we go.
There it is.
Here we go. Let's see one.
Doesn't look any better on that screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't work with or without glasses. So.
Duplicate, so. Okay, and so just some other general revisions that were recommended that don't necessarily have anything to compare themselves to. Just that the project arborist, again, is to report to the town arborist within the 6 hours, just to help increase the likelihood of feasible mitigation being applied. the overall direction to enhance and elaborate on definitions. What constitutes a disturbance to a tree? What constitutes damage to a tree? What's pruning? What's excessive pruning? So that there is less room for interpretation and question. Also, the overarching comment was to have both the definitions and guidelines and regulatory standards, evaluate those for consistency with the ANSI, the industry standards. So the town's not either way out in left field or falling back in the outfield there. There was also committee consensus to make sure that the language was clear in its implementation, so that all regulations that currently read should be done would read shall be done, to clarify that there is no room for question there. And then just lastly, making sure that any changes that are made in any documents are done for internal consistency within any municipal code chapter and or outside policy document.
Okay.
So I have been talking to some private arborists who are talking to the main developers in town, and I have been talking to main developers as well. Not that these are happening, but that we're having discussions, and that we were meeting in the committee. I invited PPG tonight to this meeting. So we're not trying to, do anything secretly or, so.
And this topic of discussion was also brought to the March Builders Roundtable meeting that our building official runs monthly, in which usually it's the same cast of developers that attend. So it was put out there on radar.
All right, Joanne, did you want to give your feeling of the run of this thing? How did it go on the committee?
Oh, it was a phenomenal experience.
Okay.
Really complimentary group of people that came at every issue from slightly different perspective, very consensus oriented, and a number of times we hashed through things till the bitter end, just to make sure we had kind of uncovered any unintended consequences. I loved how you put it, though, that it was this committee's job to kind of think about protecting the trees, and then we put that aside what this committee's role is, and you have a whole new set of questions and angles to look at. So I think some of these requests to go back and superimpose these on real life situations is an excellent suggestion. It'll be really interesting to see how that comes out. But I really thoroughly enjoyed the entire process, and just have even deeper respect and admiration for our town staff, because you guys are so darn patient with us all.
Yeah.
The elementary questions I'm sure we asked over and over and over, and just really, really wonderful process.
Good. Any other questions or comments?
I think you need to get some contractors in, as well as architects. I'd love to get Kevin's input. We're gonna open it up to the public.
Yeah.
You have to do that formally. And then,
You're trainable.
and I guess my only other question was, not from personal input, but there are certain trees that I would consider more heritage than others. I like the redwood idea. Some of the others out there, though, are I know there's a real consternation about the deodoras and the eucalyptus and stuff like that. So I'd be curious to know in other communities what they're doing about them. I know certain communities are like,
I was really shocked. Palm
So-
trees were not on the list.
So we discussed many times the eucalyptus and other species. We discussed it pretty thoroughly, and the committee decided that they didn't want to add any additional species to the no permit list. They want me to evaluate it, and if they wanted to be able to go to planning commission, if there's the one eucalyptus tree that's just really great.
is there one?
So
I
probably not, but
It's with your palm trees together.
Well, I think part of that too was to really hold on to
Yeah.
the ability for the town to require
Control.
replanting
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
from an aesthetic standpoint.
One thing to think about also on this, in terms of the way it's presented, is trying to come up with a way to organize the sections such that anytime something is easier to understand, it's more likely to be complied with. Anytime I got to go down to paragraph 14 on page 12, I don't get there, and most people don't. So if we could put it like during construction, you know, tree protection, or and then you know, like update reports, or, you know, put it into sections so that when somebody says, okay, this is a tree, this is during construction, what do you need there? And then, okay, how do we protect the tree? Okay, so then they go to these clumps of things rather than, okay, because some of these are actually could be grouped differently to be a little bit more understood. And if they were, it's again, the easier you make understanding, the more likely it is to comply.
So it follows the actual
Yeah,
process.
right.
Great.
Right, so,
So what is the, well,
I don't know about the public.
I know, but what's our process? We're gonna get input, and then we're gonna get some ideas back from the various sites we've already approved, get another meeting where people come in and talk to us about, hey, here's how it affects me, here's all that stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like the committee would like more base information to continue an evaluation discussion in the form of another study session. So we would take all the direction that we've received tonight in terms of bringing back, for example, the overlays and what this may mean, reorganizing, providing simplistic, looking at is it the compliance issue versus regulation issue after we look at the samples. Go provide additional outreach to the development and architectural community, get their input, come back to you with more ideas for further discussion, and then take it from there. If there's a need for additional study sessions, or if you at that point where you're directing staff to go ahead and make recommended changes.
And I don't know if this is at all normal, but it would seem to me that if somebody had an escrow account with $15,000 in it that you get back if the tree survives, rather than a penalty if it doesn't, it might be a different way of handling it.
Bonded?
Yeah, like they're saying, okay, if you want the.
For what period of time,
I
like
don't-
5 years
well,
or something?
I don't know, but
Anyone do that?
Yeah, there are some
Yeah,
places
I
that
feel
do
like
bonds.
Do bonds.
Saratoga.
However, there's so many trees on a site, it's
Well,
gonna get pretty.
yeah, I'm just saying, again, chasing after somebody for $5,000 is different than please give me my 15,000 back.
Right.
You know, so it's a different strategy. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and open up the public comment to see if that also redirects us at all. So go ahead and open up the public comment.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I can answer some of your questions, you know. And start off with, you know, after I do this exact work on the whole peninsula down to about Morgan Hill as far as I travel.
Also knows Atherton extremely well because he used to be our town.
Yeah, and for some reason the town thought I could do Sally's job in 14 hours. And so my inspections were real quick. Okay? Yeah. I just ran through and said, that's fine, let's go. You know, so carry on. But of all the local municipalities, the trees grow the fastest here. You look outside, how big these trees get. So I talked to a few people. I was at a meeting in Hillsborough today, and I talked to the city people there. And 6 inches is pretty small diameter for a protected tree. I like the fact that it's smaller than an average tree because an oak has more value. And I was thinking, start at 10 and see how it goes. You can always go smaller if it does better. If you do 6 inches, you're going to have to get Sally more leeway on what she can approve at staff level, because what's it cost? About $3,000 to come to this meeting?
Yeah,
To have,
25.
right. So if you have a 6-inch tree you want removed, it's not dead and it's not dangerous. Well, a 6-inch tree is not dangerous. It's not going to hurt anything, right? They have to come here and pay $2,500 to $3,000 to get a 6-inch tree removed. Well, you're better off taking a chance with your gardener with a handsaw, and no one knows it happened. So, just something to look at. A lot of the towns, Menlo Park will use for an example. They use DBH and circumference. It says or, so you, and I think it says it on
I think we
our
have the
permit
same
now.
thing. Even in the ordinance, it's this or this.
Yeah, so you just put 48-inch circumference, that's the ordinance now, or 15.3-inch diameter, and then that way, because I don't do circumference. I mean, you know, for a while Menlo Park, you had to put both the circumference and the diameter on their form, and that was just ridiculous, you know. So your question about the bonding, Saratoga makes you do a bond, and we do an appraised value of every tree, protected tree on site, which is real easy. It's on a spreadsheet, and it's just a math thing. Once you type it in, it just runs out. The numbers get pretty high. You get up to $280,000 to $400,000 worth of trees on a site. Saratoga is much like here. It's really overgrown. And what Saratoga does, it's kind of a neat thing. They let the arborist choose how much of the site should be bonded. What percentage, like 25% on what is close to building, you know. And then as far as the 10, I like the 10 times. That's what Palo Alto uses. Palo Alto is, if you want to get someone in here, get someone from don't get Dave Doctor. It takes too long. Walter Passmore, if you could get him in to talk to you. Palo Alto has really large oak trees like this, but they have small lots that are worth a fortune. Yeah. These people are buying these, much like people in Atherton, they're buying these small lots. They want the house they want on it. So. And in Palo Alto, that means 3 levels. Basement, 2 levels above. And Palo Alto does monthly inspections. And again, that's contractor driven. I'm not going to go to the site unless I'm going to get paid. So if they don't call me, I don't know that. Sometimes I don't even know if a site started. Right. You know, and then all of a sudden, you know, the contractor's in trouble and they call me. So, you know, the inspections are great, but it's still contract. It's all about the contractor. And Sally knows, there's good ones in town. There's horrific ones in town. We kind of have to treat them the same, but we watch them. And I work for both of them, so I know these people. And good sites go great. On Almondral, we did 5 magnificent houses in a 5-year period that I was involved in. Big, large valley oaks on site. Trees look great. The one that's across from you, that came out fantastic. That Chesler built. Again, and Chesler's a good contractor, but we were on him a lot with that tree protection, you know. But those trees haven't blinked. They look better than they did before they started the project. And the same as your oak tree. That was quite a project we did at your place, and it came out fantastic. So the one PPG did came out good, and then Gene had one on the corner that came out real well. That oak tree didn't look good when it started, so that one's not dying, it's just existing. But so there are cases where if it's done right, we can encroach into that 10 times a considerable amount. But it's again, it's all about the contractor. You know, if they're doing what we say to do, they have us out for root cutting. If they have us out, you know, when we're supposed to be there, the projects generally go pretty well. It's ones that, you know, that the contractor doesn't want to pay us or doesn't want to bother with us or afraid we're going to tell the town. They're the trouble, and that's just the way it is. And it's in every town. There's no cure for it, you know. Monthly inspections help, but, you know, Palo Alto, I probably have 30 houses going right now in Palo Alto. Somehow Palo Alto got difficult, and I think only John McClanahan and I work in Palo Alto now. It's just nobody wants to put up with them, you know. So, and
well, I want to make sure that we're balancing that. I do want the good contractors to work here, but I also want us to be not known as the worst place to work. You know, I want to make it attractive to the best builders.
well, right now you're the best place to work,
Yeah.
without a doubt. There's nobody even close. As far as the town, you can get Sally out before the project starts, which is always, And it was, when I was here, I wanted to be on the site before the project started, and Kathy started that, Kathy Anderson, long time ago. She'd come out, we could tell her exactly what we wanted to do, and she would give us a thumbs up or thumbs down on it. So that kind of thing is great. The outreach in Atherton is so much better than the other towns, you know. I can give you a rating list if you want to see it.
All right.
You know, and our prices fluctuate by what town we work for, or we work in, I should say, because some of them are just a nightmare, you know. There's a lot of free work that has to happen with, you know, your comments and things like that, whereas Atherton's very good on that.
Cool.
So,
I actually have a question. Sure.
yeah.
So Kevin, on there's the functional and the theoretical. And one of my questions was about the tree replacement. What's an incentive for people on site to keep trees? I.e., do you see in communities that their requirements are to, you know, you remove one tree, you have to do 3 new ones at 48-inch boxes? Is that enough of a deterrent? Because I think part of our job is, how do we deter people from moving things? I mean, if you've got it in your building envelope, so be it. I mean, you know, and like these folks that were here earlier that rerouted to be able to save those oaks, thank you. That's a perfect example where they end up taking down 2 deodars versus taking down those oak trees.
Right.
But is there have you seen in the community a perfect solution to kind of incent people that
To keep the trees.
To keep the trees.
There, you know, there's really not much of an incentive. It's more of a negative if you get rid of the tree. You know, it's not like a reward basis, you know. You know, right now, I know when I was a town arborist, the most often question I had was from real estate agents, and it was, what can we cut down? You know, they move here for the zip code. They don't move here for the beautiful trees, you know. And I'm sure you get that a lot. You know, I still get it. You know, people still think I'm the town arborist, you know. But, so, you know, the only thing we can do is make it tough on them when they do remove one. And the appraised value before you start is not a bad thing, you know. And in Seattle, the street trees at a construction site all had the appraised value on them, like on a little waterproof sheet. This tree is worth, you know, $2,500 or something like that, and you know, so that the people working there can see what the value of the tree is, and that doesn't cost the client much, anything. You know, all they're doing is they're taking our numbers and putting it on a tree. Things like that would be part of your encouragement thing to keep these trees okay. And you know, and you're still going to have the tile cutter that wants to work in the shade and the you know, that kind of stuff, and every town's fighting that. They're sweeping it out. But you know, Atherton does pretty well.
And we tag all of our trees, right? Or is it just on construction sites above a certain size, or what is that?
So yeah, the trees on construction sites are supposed to be inventoried already.
They put the orange wrapper around it. So.
No, but there's generally a little.
And then they tag
Yeah.
it with a number, and
Right.
that's how I know what to look at.
Right.
Most
That should be
sites
required
do
in
that.
the report.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of arborists,
Yeah.
they'll do the report and use the map only and not the tag.
Yeah.
You guys back?
No.
I was
Yes.
gonna ask, in regard to the tree protection zone, how do you handle the situation where a tree of a neighbor is right near the lot line of the construction property?
So they're
and
supposed.
its roots are coming up, how do you deal
So
with
they
it?
are supposed to show neighbors' trees on the plan. If there's any heritage neighbors' trees on the plan and the diameter of that tree.
So you can
In
put a
some
protection
cases,
zone
I have
around.
them put up a fence that looks like they're fencing nothing.
Yeah,
Where?
but it's the
It
neighbor.
depends on the species. It depends on if there's been a lot of talk from the neighbors. It gets even more strict, you know. But we have had cases last year where roots were cut on a large neighbor's tree, and the developer had to pay,
Wow, I guess so. Thank you.
and the neighbor was not happy.
I think we have maybe one more speaker. Did you have?
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Good.
Yeah. So.
I didn't want you to wait till midnight.
No. I could go on for hours about tree protection in different cities, but yeah, no, I'd be glad. Anything you need. And I think Randy's idea is fantastic about get some pros in here, contractors, architects, and you know, the tree guys that are trying to run these things down and make them work, you know.
Well, the other thing on that too, goes back to getting the data. I mean, if an individual who wanted to build a home knew that we track like the tree preservation numbers and whatever fines are associated with a particular contractor, that might influence the decision on who they chose. And it's just data. It's not about a recommendation. It's about, by the way, this person has been fined 12 times for tree death, and this has none. And so if you want to think, you just think about that, and if you want to spend the 12 tree death fee, then just build that into your cost. So there could be some things we do also just in terms of data.
Little wall of shame, I
Yeah. I mean, well, I always tell them, you know, it also makes bad developers better because they realize it's being tracked. When you track stuff, you know, people notice. Behavior changes. Right. All right. Anything else? No other public comment? Thank you. All right. Thank you. All right. And we'll close the public comment, bring it back to us for discussion and direction to staff as appropriate.
I think they have direction.
You have everything?
I do.
Sounds like a job security, does it?
Yeah, something to do for the next one. You know, I think we can collaborate on. We'll try to get a variety of property for you. Probably most of them thickly wooded, and then a few that we've seen recently that maybe are more sporadic. What that would look like, and evaluate some of the measurement regulation, and see what that also looks like. And we have other jurisdiction comparisons already, so we can provide that to you just as an additional resource, and also outreach and see what we can get back from the architects and the developers and the local arborists.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we, as we even put this in the ordinance, we really emphasize what the purpose is. You know, it's like you know, that part of the reason that this zip code is worth so much to me. Thank you for coming. Part of the reason that the zip code is worth so much is because we take care of the way the zip codes work. So you chop down everything, you say, okay, great, you're in Atherton. Well, it doesn't look like Atherton anymore. It looks like a new development. So we're helping to, you know, preserve the investment of the town, and that's and then it just let people make sure that this is all about being a good neighbor. So you know, it gets easier.
Part of that too can be supporting Sally and Stephanie and everybody else is we can, there's easy ways at the building, at the counter and other places to be able to have it be very clear that we take it seriously, and that the tree stuff is, I mean, not everyone lives in this site because the trees are what they are. And we don't buy a lot unless the trees are spectacular. It's that detailed. I mean, that's 90% of the value of a lot to us.
Yeah, along with those pictures of the 5 last contractors while we're charged fees. All right, anything else?
Yep.
All right, good. So then we'll close this item and you'll bring it back for discussion at a future date. We don't need a motion for that, do we?
Was there a timeline, Joanne, when you guys were trying to get all this done, or was it just
to kind of keep things.
Yeah, we just don't want to waste your time going crashing through it, right? So, conceptually,
that's what I'm thinking. It's just how much time do you have?
Yeah.
I don't think there's a ton. I think we can do the site analyses relatively easy. We have the plan, so we'll just do
Just
run it rough.
I'm thinking about one more planning session, one more study session, followed by another meeting where we can actually take an action.
Okay.
So that kind of setting. So
Perfect.
we're talking about something like between 2 and 4 months, probably that type of thing.
Okay.
Right? Something like that. Sounds good. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
All right. The next item is commission reports. Anything anybody needs to report? Thanks, Sally.
Actually, I have 2 questions. On the affordable housing.
Yes.
Did that get approved by the council, or what happened on that?
That did, yes, and
It
so
did?
it did. I don't know the exact date, but I feel it's in the next 2 weeks that the actual ordinance becomes effective.
So they had the second reading?
They had the second reading,
And
yes.
then no appeals?
No appeals.
And did it get approved the way we all sent it to them,
Yes.
or was it altered?
There were no changes
Oh, wow.
to the second unit ordinance.
So that's
Or
good.
accessory dwelling
Dwelling
unit.
unit.
Accessory
ordinance.
dwelling, oh, yeah, okay, all right.
Do what you can do.
Okay. Second, I had a question, totally it may be irrelevant here, or you may tell me that it's not on the agenda, so we can't talk about it. We had a couple meetings ago, someone who showed up who was appealing us on a 3-year construction timeframe on that 46 Almond Road.
Mhm.
You ever remember that?
I live at 138, so I'm right down, we live at 138, right down the street, so we go by it all the time. That thing is still not done,
Yeah.
and it's not even close to done.
Yeah, when I was
It's
there, yeah.
It's horrible, and
Yeah.
so separate of us, which it's not about me and it's not about our family. I'm just thinking those poor neighbors that are sitting there
Right.
every stinking day, going, what do we have to do to get these guys done? They have no incentive. I feel like the building department here made a mistake and signed off early on that thing
I think
because they got pressure.
Well, I think they got, I'm trying to be nice because the next day it was,
Right.
the bit of this penalty was huge,
It
but,
was like a couple $100,000.
yeah, right.
Well,
right.
my gut tells me, once somebody has, if it's found that somebody got got the wrong way or misled the building department, can we get somebody reversed in terms of that? Because there is no way that he's 5 months from being done. Easy.
So our enforcement tends to be complaint-based, and I'm hearing, in general, a
Yes.
complaint.
Okay.
So I think what we would do is float it past staff, have them look into it and see what happened.
Yeah, I've been by it and it just,
I don't know what
not even close.
It is
I don't
fine.
know what the legal status is, so
Yeah,
that would be
I-
helpful to look and
I'll
see
certainly
what their
talk to the
agreement
building
is.
official and see where we
And
are in
then-
the process.
It would be helpful just to flag that, so staff would now go look at that and see,
Right.
okay, what is their promise to the town, where are they with that?
Did they pay the fine, or did they pay it at the end of the project?
Or do they appeal?
They did not appeal, that I know.
They would have paid the fine, that is required, and I believe, or I may be confusing that.
Well,
so
if they
asked
haven't
if
paid
they
it,
later
I think we
resent
red flag them, or whatever you guys have authority to do.
Okay,
I think you go in, because I think you gotta send a real message. One, I think it sets a horrible precedent around town to anybody
Yeah.
else who thinks, hey, well, they got it, they should do
it.
it.
Yeah.
But I think they misled the building department on what was really done, because it's not done.
That may be helpful for
Yeah,
them
and
to
I'll-
be reminded to
Yeah.
look at that.
yeah, I'll talk to the building official tomorrow.
And I don't want them feeling like I'm criticizing the building official at all.
We're all about
Yeah.
consistency, and I
Yeah.
think in the past, certain things weren't enforced.
Yeah.
That's my understanding, and that in particular was something that was just never enforced. But since we have started enforcing it, it is imperative that we are very consistent.
And
about
there's no
enforcing it.
reason, when I was on general plan when we did that,
Mhm.
there's no reason it should take anyone 36 months to get something, unless they order these exotic supplies from Timbuktu, and all of a sudden they're taking that risk that
Right.
whatever that stone is, whatever that wood is, whatever it is they're having sent in, doesn't come in for a year. But, I mean, we build, when we don't, when we build a home, it's 15 months, 14 months. So it's not, there's no way that's,
Right, and he's well over 40, he's over 40 months now at this point.
Yeah,
at least, yeah.
yeah, like I said, I don't know, unfortunately, off the top of my head, but I'll have a direct conversation with the building
All
official
right, that's
tomorrow and
Yeah.
report back.
And it's easy to find out, because the fire department's right next door, about what really happens. They're literally share a fence. So it's not like this is, they would be a perfect one for you in terms of what's going on there.
Good to know.
Good, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know if this was appropriate or not.
What was the number on that again?
46 Almond Road.
Mhm.
I mean, they just have the orange construction tape up front, covering up they're gonna replace the fence someday. They haven't done that.
Yeah, they got the driveway to do and everything else,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
and the whole landscaping.
Oh, yeah.
All right, anything else? I've got one quick update, and that was, we did have the item come up to the town council on the sidewall, and the discussion about there was actually very similar to what that we had here. It was a 4-1 decision in favor, and it was called brilliant and not enough, but Mr. Winter voted against it. He said, I'd rather have it do more to do the interesting thing about, just for what it's worth, well, let me finish for the discussion of the meeting. The meeting seemed like it went very well. And Lisa was there to actually go over it, and then she introduced me, and I went over the process of that through, and also the things we didn't decide to do, like change the sidewall, the definition of things like that, and why we did that. And then also talked about what we were talking about doing and why. They had the same questions. They made one word change. There was a word change about.
Yeah, there was something that
It was not to, it was to not have the language read to the offending area or element, that they felt that that was too inclusive of everything, so they wanted more specificity. I have my notes.
It was a shall.
Yeah.
It was a
It
shall
was a
as
sub-
opposed
yeah,
to
it was
a
a
shall as
change,
opposed
yeah.
to a will or something like that. It was one of those. It was a one word change on one of the lines. There was nothing. Nothing else.
It didn't change the
Yeah,
substance in any way.
And so it was one council person's interpretation of like what does that really mean, and we changed that word and everything went through. All right, so that was their first reading. It'll come back for an action later on
In May.
and a passport one.
So in spite of your input, they said.
I was trying not to get up there, but at least it made embarrass me to go up there. So.
Oh yeah, you gotta follow me up that public speaking. Yeah. Oh, really? You're standing in the back.
I was very quiet, wasn't I?
Oh yeah.
I was.
Actually, I have to say.
We're concise.
I was concise.
You embarrassed her, but you were concise.
Did you
No.
bring Christmas lights?
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, what costume did you wear?
Yes, like a biker. With Christmas lights.
Well, when I go and speak on this tree thing, I'm gonna come as an oak or something. Oh, yeah, right. All right.
Actually, I had one other thing.
Okay, go ahead.
It's so funny now that once you go through one of these things, then you start looking around. Wherever I drive around town, I just wish this had been in place, because I look at some of these houses that aren't, and I'm like, well, the poor people. I mean, they have this, kind of a bastard design that's just,
Yeah.
Well, the other thing too is I went around today and looked at the homes that are not modern homes, and looked at their sidewalls, and they have a little tiny lip on the end and things like that. And some of them don't have enough of a lip to really count, so they would go. But that would also impact them, because they would be able to do more with that too. So this is not an ordinance just about modern; it's about every home design. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of rectangular homes being built, 7,000 square foot places with a 35 square foot basement, and it's just, it doesn't matter if there was a French provincial that was just straight up, and then something, I went on a tour today to drop off some things, and I went, oh yeah, that could have been helped by the ordinance. That's good. But what's going on is is just. And that's the other thing I want to look at on this tree ordinance, because once we start squeezing everything goes up. It gets square and boxy. It goes again. If you give me 4 square feet, I'm going to go up.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on the commission report? All right. Then staff reports.
Just that the town hosted an Earth Day event last Saturday, if anybody was able to attend. It sounded like it was well received. We blocked off the street here at Ashfield down to Maple, so it ran right in front of the council chambers here down to the end of the library parking lot, joint with the library. They did a lot of more children-focused events, so that was nice to bring in an additional genre. I think that helped our community attendance. And then Recology had their event down on the opposite end by the train tracks for the e-waste, e-shred, compost giveaway. So it brought a lot of different crowds together.
Cool. Very cool. All right. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, and then just to think about the big things we have that are sort of the macro things that go on. We have a general plan thing that's coming up.
We do. We've had a few staffing changes unexpected, so we have to figure that out too.
All right, so we got
it's
that
all
on the radar
set.
screen. We got the trees on the radar screen.
Yep.
What else? Any other big thing that's out there?
No.
Okay, we did the auxiliary unit, or the
Accessory dwelling unit,
Accessory
yes.
All right, so that was one that we did.
Yeah.
We were at the beginning of the year. I
There
said
was something else on our agenda from
I was-
last year that
I thought there was
we
one
kicked
more.
the can down the road on that we thought
I
we
thought
could
there
this
was
year.
one.
There were some issues with the PG&E tree removals,
Yeah.
and anticipating more applications coming forth and wanting a cumulative
Yeah.
plan or
True.
But they've gone silent on me,
Mhm.
so
Okay.
I'll have to follow up with that.
All right,
Thank you
good.
for the reminder.
That was, but those are the big ones that we had on our sort of radar screen for the
Yep.
year that we started talking
When you
about.
said general plan stuff, remind me, what was that?
We were looking at a comprehensive update to the general plan on all elements except for the housing element, because we have to do that by state.
And did we already did we already do this or this is
No.
2B?
No, this is 2B.
Yeah, that's a big one too.
Yeah, that is big.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lengthy process. That's not what we're just gonna jump right in and go, hey, here we go.
No, in the, we had brought forward the idea of doing the update and asking for direction from the commission on how we wanted to tackle it. And the direction received at that point, which was last year, was we'd be taking a few elements together piece by piece
Right.
to study session format to the
Right.
commission, probably hitting the big guys first, like land use and transportation and circulation.
Right. Yeah, that's required to be updated every periodic time, right? I mean, there's a time limit, basically, isn't there a guideline for how often it's updated?
There are standards that your general plan needs to comply with, and sometimes the State Office of Planning and Research will do updates, and you
Right.
have to update your plan
Right.
accordingly. So we do an annual general plan compliance report that we bring forward to
Right.
you every year, and probably coming up here soon. So I think the last one we did, there were a few areas in which our
Right.
plan was
Well,
noted to be out of compliance.
Right,
and
we
so it helped
did a
trigger the
revision last year,
yeah,
remember?
comprehensive, yeah.
Yeah.
And now we have the adopted climate action plan,
Mhm.
potentially some more changes to the trees, so we would want to capture all of that in the framework of the general plan.
Okay, I just want to keep those on our radar screen
Yeah.
during the year, right? All right, anything else then? All right, then, item 8, I need a motion and a second, unless I want to be here all night.
I refuse.
That's a motion. You're seconding, she just made